Hello, we continue with the same section, page 45, the second paragraph. Even when the loanword discussion had lost much of its heat in the late 16th century, still authors, they felt the need to justify their use. For example, George Puttenham, he was given reasons for borrowing. Not only for the reasons were not only in filling the lexical gaps, but also he said that it should be used in chorus speech and in euphony. But however, he condemned synonyms that they weren't given semantic differentiation to the language or no harmonious sound. So on the one hand, he was justifying that, but on the other was saying, be careful. When we consider different genres, the epic would be the genre that really felt the need to use Latinism, because it was the way to give linguistic ornament. And most poets were convinced that for epic they have to use a lot of Latinism. Those writers who objected really hard on this pouring of Latinisms were called the purists, and I just want you to be very careful. Purists, not Puritans, no puritanos, sino puristas. I know that seems maybe very obvious, but every year I got students just writing down in the exam the Puritans, and this is something we're going to see in January, not now. So the purists, they resist the tendency to use Latinisms a lot. They criticize that it was like a foolish excess to try to. They reject that idea, and they call those neologisms, those excessive neologisms, they call them inhortans, because smelled of ink, los cultismos, and they said that it was a way to, or it was an indication of having a very exaggerated style when writing in English. One writer who was a purist was Thomas Wilson. Thomas Wilson, he thought those that they were using inhortans or Latinisms, they were fabricating an English which was outlandish, which was extravagant. And he, there was a very nice quotation on page 45 about him, criticizing the use. And also it's quite curious because he mocked the writers who were using, made fun of the writers who were using Latinisms a lot, and he invented a letter. It was called a Minhor letter, in which he took many Latinisms in one letter to show how ridiculous it looked like. I just want you to go and have a look at the very short clip called Contrafibularity, which is in this section, to find. Let's see if you recognize two of the two famous actors there, and it's precisely about the idea that you were using words that were incomprehensible, and just but just incorporating words and words just because you wanted to show off. Besides Wilson, we have other purists, like for example Roger Ascham and Sir John Cheek. So John Cheek also criticized the overuse and the misuse. And at the end of page 44, you find just one quotation by Sir John Cheek about that. And then we have Thomas Hobby was another purist, and they were the reason why they also rejected borrowing is because they saw, or they were concerned about the purity of the English vocabulary. They resented the borrowing could contaminate the English language. This is what is happening today with English interfering with Spanish, and you will find lots of examples of the mass media introducing, because again English, it sounds nicer in English. So it was the same here at this time in early modern English. It sounded nicer in Latin than in English. And so what they did, they have like three options to try not to incorporate Latinisms. They employed three methods, and I just want you to tell me on Thursday the three possibilities that purists have had instead of using Latinisms. Just want you to tell me the three. Edmund Spenser, for example, he was a great admirer of Chaucer, and he is called an archaizer. An archaizer in the sense that he wanted to use archaic or dialectal words. He called them Chaucerisms, and he just wanted to incorporate them instead of having Latinisms. But it's quite curious because most of the words that he invented, or although he recovered from Old English, they weren't successful. For example, he invented the word braggadocio, and braggadocio coming from to brag. However, it sounds more Italian than Old English, really, so it wasn't that successful. Other purists who tried to augment the language by coining new words from existing English was Sir John Check. We've talked about him before, and what he did was to even translate the New Testament using only English terms. And what he wanted to do was to extend the connotation, to extend the denotation of existing words. For example, if we have the word, for example, the word to cross, with the meaning of to crucify, although today we don't use the word to cross as to crucify, we're using the Latin word. Or, for example, changing grammatical categories. He invented the word moon, from moon, the noun, into an adjective, instead of using lunatic, which was the Latinism. But as you can see, again, most of these words or coining or extensions of meaning, they did not survive into modern English. Another advocate was Arthur Golding, and Arthur Golding he rejected borrowing and he started using compounding. He invented many compounds, and again some of them were self-explanatory and they did not have any, they did not survive. Like, for example, for Masons, he said flesh strings. And one which survived, one example, is the word prime time, but not with the sense that we have it today. Prime time, the meaning for Golding was an early age of the world. It would be the translation, not the translation we have it today. But in a way, he invented that term and we have it today. But most of them, again, they died. So despite the protest and despite the efforts to substitute native formation for the English terms, the Latin loanwords, they continue to pour into the English language. And many of them were accepted without any command or any objection, because there was a consensus that the language needed those words. And we can really talk about, not about a complete purist attitude, but about different degrees of Latinization. So some writers were using more Latinism than others. It's not that all the purists, or that the purists, they were pure purists. And stop here for the very last section on Mulcaster's attitude. Thank you.